Anybody who's been watching my stuff for a while know that my interests are kind of all over the place. Pretty much anything with a geeky bent to it, but really if I were to say if there's one true love that I really have, I am an animation junkie. So this little sub-series is going to be delving into the world of animation, the best, the worst, the stuff I love, the stuff I think's overrated. So let's get right to it, starting with... yeah. Geeks around my age know this show, and they love this show with good reason. Batman the Animated Series really paved the way for this show, and it's gorgeous animation. There's a lot of action in this show, and the action kicks a whole lot of ass. But at its heart, it's dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. It's dealing with family, loss, betrayal. It gets Shakespearean at points, very blatantly in fact. So on top of everything else, it's surprisingly well educated. And the voice cast is stellar. I think Keith David is a friggin' god, due in no small part to his work as Goliath. This is what introduced me to the guy. He is so good and he's got such gravitas to his voice. It's almost unparalleled. It's James Earl Jonesian. And he's such a strong lead character. But he's got these great characters around him too. Elisa, who could have been just a tag-along, a damsel in distress like April O'Neil or something, but no. She's strong, she is independent, she can take care of herself. Xanatos, really fascinating villain, not only because he's not really that much of a bad guy. Yeah, he's out for himself and he's got a lot of schemes, but he's not just evil, mustache twirling evil. He's got layers, he's complicated. Demona, oh, tragic villain. You want to talk about a bad history. This chick, oh man. By the time the show ends, you completely get why she is the way she is. And the other Gargoyles are great too. Hudson, Broadway, Brooklyn, Bronx. All these guys in there, just such a family. You really get that feeling of community in this show. I feel like I'm finally able to talk about this thing completely because Volume 2 of Season 2 finally did come out. We had to wait a long time for that because the first two didn't sell up to expectations, but finally they did. They threw the fans a bone and they gave us this thing. So I feel I can do the whole scope. Yes, I understand there were more episodes even after seasons 2. They were called the Goliath Chronicles, but the creator of the show has disowned them and generally they're not considered canon. So I'm not even gonna deal with that. But the progress of this show, season 1, you immediately, just by the fact that it delves right off the bat into this history and this depth of all this stuff going on in Scotland and the history of these characters. And then you get a lot of really bold mysteries in the first season because you get Macbeth introduced, who isn't gonna get explained for quite a while, but is interesting right off the bat. John Rhys Davies, another voice shout out. I think season 2, volume 1 is probably most of my favorite stuff. It just gets really in depth and we get a lot of great stuff with the history of Demona and Macbeth. And you get to see all these other characters just grow and change and evolve. Season 2, volume 2, I'm actually a little bit iffy on because it expands the world, but it expands the world so much that it kind of makes the Gargoyles themselves seem a little bit more minor in a weird way. Because when the show started, the whole sort of hook and the pitch was these Gargoyles are the only ones of their kind and the world that they were once a part of is gone. Well, season 2, volume 2 material, we start finding out, well, there's Avalon, there's other Gargoyles, there's all these other sort of mystical beings, and the Gargoyles themselves just feel a little bit less special because of that. It's still great stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's a personal preference thing. But this show is just top-notch. It's gorgeous animation. I would recommend it really for anybody. I would say age 7 or 8 and going up from that. They have to be able to cope with the idea of characters actually dying because there is some actual death in this show. It's not traumatic. Characters you love don't die, but when dealing with a lot of the backstory and a lot of the history, a lot of characters who are, it's made very clear, are now dead, get dealt with, and the fact that they are dead is directly addressed. So, if you're thinking about introducing your kid to it, have that in mind, but aside from that, honestly, this is just a great all-around action show, starting at that age to infinity, as far as I'm concerned. There's no age cap on enjoying this show. And that's why, as an animation junkie, I'm definitely addicted. Did you ever watch Gargoyles? Who's your favorite character in all of Gargoyles? I gotta go classic, I gotta go Goliath, I can't not. Although actually Owen kind of runs a second for me, which is maybe an odd choice, but I always liked him. So leave an answer down in the comments, let's talk about it. And until next time, I'll be back when I get my fix.